What's going on, y'all? It's JD Pickell with On 3. Today on the Hard Count, somebody said Arch Manning would be a 3-star with a different last name. We will discuss next. Welcome into the Hard Count, the people's show for every single thing that you know and that you love about college football. It happens here on a nearly daily basis. Nick Brake is doing the heavy lifting. You can help drive the show at my Twitter page, at JD Pickell. Speaking of my Twitter page, we put out a poll yesterday in light of some recent comments made in the media, which we'll get to in a second, and just said, if Arch Manning had a different last name, would he be a 3-star quarterback? And this poll was very much split. Like one way or the other, it was about 50-50. I think it's like 49-51 in favor of no or yes, whatever it is right now. Bottom line, it's close. So this is a topic worth debating. But the reason why we asked that poll was because somebody in national media yesterday came out and said, quote, when he was asked about Arch Manning, he said, quote, if his last name was Smith, he'd be a high 3-star. So this kind of calls into question, how much is the Manning name boosting Arch Manning? Ultimately asking the question, is Arch Manning overrated? Because this person with a fair amount of credibility made that claim. He also said, quote, anytime I watch another quarterback in this class, I like them better, which that in itself implies that stars are somehow relative to the rest of your peers. Like we're grading you based on how other guys around you are doing and not in relation to just the model as a whole, which that in itself feels like the first chink in the armor. But I asked Charles Power, and this was even before this statement came out, I asked Charles Power, I said, talk to me about Arch Manning. Like, I actually asked him that exact question. How much of his last name is boosting him? And he had a couple of key points he said. He said, one, last name obviously looks good, but when it comes to just what you're watching on tape and what you watch up close with Arch Manning, he said he's got the quickest release of a high school prospect that I've ever seen. And Charles Power has seen a lot of high school prospects. He also said he's the most physically developed of the group, and he's very polished. Doesn't sound like a 3-star quarterback to me. The other thing I want to get to, they're not just handing out 5 stars. They're not just giving out 5-star grades like they're candy on Halloween. 5-star grades are incredibly difficult to come by. And every single recruiting service that I've seen to this point has Arch Manning as a 5-star. So that means that either all these recruiting services are in cahoots or Arch Manning's really that guy. The other piece of this, there's not a lot of other prospects in the high school football world that you can compare him to right now because of the last name and this, that, and the other. So there's not like another Brady that you could say, okay, Tom Brady's kid has 5 stars because he's Tom Brady's kid. But when you look at other athletes at the high school level and how they've been graded out with famous last names, they're not 5 stars. For example, Marcus Jordan. That's right, Jordan as in Michael Jordan's son. He was a 3-star prospect. Bronny James, who's still in high school right now, his grade could go up or I guess in theory could go down, but his dad's LeBron James. Surprise, surprise. He's a 4-star. So both these guys, obviously high school basketball players. Marcus Jordan went on to play for UCF, and both these guys had very famous, successful dads. Both their dads are in the GOAT conversation. Neither of them got a 5-star grade. I rest my case. The last piece of this, people who know football, people who live and breathe and wake up in the morning and smell the coffee and think about football and that put food on the table for their family from the game of football, they bet on Arch Manning. They wanted Arch Manning on their team. Guys with last names like Saban, guys like Kirby Smart, they all wanted Arch Manning. I understand Alabama took Eli Holstein, but they were going to take 2 quarterbacks either way. They were in the Arch Manning sweepstakes very much so. Steve Sarkisian is a quarterback whisperer. He's been around guys like Carson Palmer. He's been around guys like Matt Leinart. And he wanted Arch Manning. He got Arch Manning. So to somehow assume that Arch Manning is overrated is very much false. in my humble opinion, that is very much false. To have guys like I said, Nick Saban saying, no, we want Arch Manning, I think that we got to take a closer look at that. That should hold a lot more weight. There's a narrative out there that he's ducking competition. And I understand where that comes from, that he's not going to the camps and this, that, and the other. Here's my feel on this. It sounds like a lot of what he does with the camp setting and things like that, and I don't want to get too much into speculation here, but it sounds like that's in a lot of ways credit to his counsel. And his counsel, assuming both his uncles are a part of that, have a lot of Super Bowl rings. Both Peyton and Eli saying, hey, don't worry about this camp or that camp, whatever it may be. I'd have a really hard time not trusting them. It feels like he's probably got the best camp in college football in his backyard. We'll leave it at that. All that's to say, do not believe if you changed Arch Manning's last name to Smith, he would be a 3-star. A lot of other people, both in the scouting world and in the coaching world, have signed off on Arch Manning. The beautiful part of this is that on 4th and 2 against Oklahoma, when he drops back to pass, it's not going to matter how many stars he had in high school. That's it for us here on The Hard Count. Appreciate you tuning in. Subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Twitter at JD Piquel to stay up with every single thing we're doing here. We want you a part of it. We're going to keep the party rolling, and we will see y'all next time. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.